U.S. Secretary of Energy Jennifer Granholm, thank you for joining us.
Glad to be here. Thank you so much.
We have a bipartisan infrastructure plan and a partisan spending plan that both include a range of measures to address the effects of climate change and wean us off of fossil fuel. How well do you think the general public understands what's actually in those plans and what the measures would actually change?
Well, I'm not sure that the public understands what's in them because the second one hasn't been fully drafted yet. But what is important to know is what the president is intending in the second bill and what we know about the first. So the first is the infrastructure bill. One of the most important pieces of it is the ability to shore up our transmission grid, and that we have a grid that has the capacity to be able to take on the additional renewable energy that we want to generate across the country, number one. And number two, it also invests in building out the charging infrastructure, the charging stations for electric vehicles. The second piece, though, has a goal of getting to 100% of clean electricity by 2035, and that we will incentivize both the private sector and utilities to be able to do the build out that's necessary to get to our overall goal of 100% clean electricity by 2035.
There's also a proposal for a clean energy payment plan to induce the power companies to use more renewable and clean energy sources, and tax credits for the private sector as well. Assuming those make the cut, one, what specifically would they change and how would they work?
Yeah, great question. So the Clean Electricity Payment Plan is really a way to help incentivize the utilities to add additional clean electricity to their portfolio, to their service. We don't want the utilities, some of which are investor owned, to be able to just pocket the money. The money has to go to the benefit of ratepayers, and we have to do it in a way that does not raise rates. The second is those tax credits get the private sector off the sidelines. So again, clean energy broadly defined, that could include nuclear, it could include solar, wind, et cetera, and making sure that the private sector gets incentivized to be able to do that build out through the tax code. There's one other piece that we hope will be included, which would be a tax credit to incentivize the manufacture of the solar and panels and the wind turbines and the batteries for electric vehicles, et cetera. We want to make these products here in America, stamp them made in America, use them in America, but also perhaps export them to the rest of the world as well.
I know the details of the budget reconciliation are still being filled in, but based on what you know and expect, will or should there be an inclusion of a clean energy standard if you set a 2030 target to keep it in a 10-year window?
Yes, well, for sure there should be, and that's what's envisioned with the Clean Electricity Payment Plan that we just went over, is that will incentivize the utilities to get to 80% clean electricity by 2030, and then to be able to move beyond that this decade to get to 100% by 2035. Once that build out rolls and the technology costs continue to drop as they are, that next 5% or 20% will be a lot easier to do.
As Secretary of Energy, you oversee 17 different national labs. What are they currently doing, and how will they change the fight against man-made climate change?
There are 17 of them. We called the Department of Energy the Solutions Department because they are working on next generation technologies. So advances in solar panels that make them much more efficient, for example, advances in tidal, 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 like the tides, and wave power to be able to harness that to produce clean electricity. Advances in geothermal, pulling heat from beneath our feet, from the middle of the earth up to be able to produce clean energy, as well as decarbonizing the existing fossil fuel industry. So for example, one way to do that is through a technology called hydrogen, green hydrogen, and we want to make sure that we are able to use that. It's not quite ready yet, but you'll see a lot of demonstration projects that come out of that infrastructure bill on hydrogen to be able to use to export, deploy, and use clean energy across the country.
Secretary Granholm, thank you for your time.
You bet. Thanks so much.